Mayoral debate number 1.
Henry Perea, Lee Brand.
Live from the KMJ studios.
This is Fresno's number 1 News Talk 580 1059 KMJ.
Methinks this is going to be a little bit of fun and somewhat innovative, too, because there are quite a few of you checking it out on our Facebook page, KMJ Now Facebook page, and something called Facebook Live. And if you go to our Facebook page, not yours, you can go to ours, you'll see probably a very ugly picture of me, as I just said, and there's a little live tab. You just click that, and boom, we start moving around. And you can see Lee Brand and Henry Perea, who are both here. Gentlemen, welcome. How are you?
Doing great.
Great. Thanks for having us, Ray.
Any pressure because we're on a video? We're being viewed by human beings.
Not at all.
We've been on, 2 live TV debates, or at least one of them.
Yeah, so this isn't the first time you guys have gotten together.
Right.
Many times. And during the prime, at least 10 times there were debates to forums.
I guess we can claim the first radio debate, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Henry, get a little closer to your microphone. You got to just jump on these or they're...
Okay.
Or nobody will hear you. Well, we're going to start off talking about, and we may wind up there talking about the whole hour about this Northeast water situation. Time allowing, I might get into some police issues. Time allowing, we will take some phone calls. Maybe. I got to give you a maybe on that. 490-5858. And I would like to ask you, if you are calling, to be specific on your question, and please ask it of one of the gentlemen. And if I deem that the other one needs to respond, we'll go ahead. If we start asking both the same question, we're going to take 15 minutes on one telephone question, and that ain't going to work. So if you have a question for one or the other, and just get right to it if we come to you at 490-5858. This water thing in Northeast Fresno, it's kind of hard for me anyway to tell with all these red flags if this is something that's just been ginned up for political reasons or if there's a real problem there. Now, to my knowledge, the city has released a flood of email on this issue going back to about 2004. And at the time, there were about 10 homes that were affected. And after whatever fix, the water department director at the time, whose name was Martin, I believe, pronounced all is well and fixed and let's move on. And then documents show clearly that this issue vanished after 2007. Gone. Nothing there. Until it appears again in January of this year. Now, I don't know if that means anything or not, but Henry, is there any meaning in there? Is something going on, or is that just an amazing coinky-dink? It resurfaces again in an election year.
Yeah, I don't know, Ray, on the data that you have there and what the point of reference is, but I guess I would argue that it didn't disappear after 2007. I think when you talk to the residents that are out there, they're going to tell you that the water problem continued. They continue to contact City Hall, and they continue to get no response. So I think it was an issue of not getting a response to the issues they were having with discolored water and the potential effects of them and their kids.
Lee, same.
Different approach because the city had a Public Records Request Act from Angela Greenwood, Channel 24. They've released hundreds of emails going back to 2004. What is obvious back in 2004, there was a problem of about 5 to 10 houses that involved the city. The city did a marginal investigation, concluded that the problem was the tenants, and in some cases, through appeasement, gave tenants bottled water. And this sort of went up to about 2007. And then the council member, Duncan, was aware of the problem. In fact, the entire council, including the council president, Henry T. Perea, was aware of the problem by a resident who sent an email to him. And after 2007, it just dies off. Not to suggest the problem died off, is that the problems were being filtered somewhere in the water department. There's an investigation going on right now in the water department.
Who's heading the investigation?
The city itself. The city's investigating through the city attorney's office.
Okay.
Both former employees, current employees. And literally, in my office, there's not one complaint that comes in until January 5th, 2016. I get an email from a resident, Jeanette Greider, and she attaches 14 or 15 people with the same problem. That got my attention. And you can see by the email chain, and you'll see the emails pre-2016 and post-2016. Here's just a part of the hundreds of, there's a camera out there this time, Ray. Hundreds of emails.
See it,
yes. That From that point in time, I took the initiative. I led the charge to investigate. I engaged Tommy Escueda. He immediately got involved in a full-scale investigation engaging County Health Department, State Water Resources Board, EPA, private experts. So from the inception, contrary to what Henry has said, I was actively engaged. I helped set up 2 public meetings. We had the best attended ever District 6 meetings on 2 meetings. This was an ongoing process. I'm working on a regular basis with staff. To my knowledge, Henry's never met with our staff to really get fully briefed on all the facts and figures. And Henry didn't get engaged in this until about June, after the second meeting, came out with a press conference, made some misleading statements because he had not consulted the experts. And to this day, not only has he not done anything in District 6, he's not done anything in his own backyard.
Okay. Henry, I'm going to let you respond.
Yeah,
Obviously,
sure.
also, too, that you've also accused Lee of dropping a ball on this whole thing. I'd like to hear about that
Sure,
as well.
absolutely. Yeah. Now?
Yeah, now.
Yeah. I think Lee's version of history is a little bit off kilter, but that's okay. I mean, Ray, to go back to your opening comments, is this a real issue? The answer is yes. And, honestly, I was shocked yesterday. I was on another radio show where there was a resident who spoke about the history for her, and she had very heavy documentation attached to her statements. And I was listening on the radio as I was driving in. But I think what was shocking to me, what should be shocking to everybody, is she had announced as part of her conversation that she had a grandmother that passed away about a week or so ago from, I believe it was dementia. And the comments that she made was, in her research, she found that lead could be a factor in that issue of dementia. So now they're going to go back with that relative, get hair or whatever sample they can get to do testing. Now, what in the end, Ray, whether that comes out to be lead or not, I think as a community, we have to take a step back and say, how did we get to this point where you have now people saying maybe relatives that have passed away may have been affected by that? So is this a real issue in this community? Absolutely. Is it, yes, is this in the political context? Well, we have a mayor's race. And I think what people are saying and looking forward to is who can lead this city with all of the issues that you have coming before it. And I think this is a textbook example to examine what is our leadership styles. And the facts are this. I mean, Lee Brand, in his own words, at his district meeting said, hey, before I came on the council, I was the resident. I owned a home. I had a renter. I had a problem. I called the city, and the city blew me off.
We've heard that, yes.
Okay,
yes.
And he said it on another radio show. And I guess the point is this. He had knowledge. And as a resident, he felt the same frustration that the people today are feeling because they haven't had answers for the past 10, 12 years.
But where has he dropped the ball?
This is where he dropped the ball. When he was elected and took office in 2009, he now had the power of being the district representative to deal with all the issues that are in that district. So he had knowledge that there was a water issue. He hired the chief of staff of the former councilman who had knowledge of the issue. She had, and I believe she's produced emails showing contacts they were having. So at the minimum, if I was Lee Brand, and I sat at the city council for 6 years, city councilmen are the folks that are at the listening posts throughout this city. And what they are, the eyes and ears for the mayor to help deal and solve problems in their district. He should have at least picked up the phone somewhere in 2009 and said, this was a problem then, is it not a problem now? He didn't. He did not. So now I fast forward to 2016, and now the narrative is, hey, I got an email on June 5th, or rather January 5th or 6th, whatever, and there's 16 names. Now it caught my attention. Well, you know what? As a councilman, as the mayor Swearingen is putting together $1 billion budget, what I would have said is, you know what, Mayor, I may have a problem in my district. I think as you build the budget, I may need some resources to help my people.
Okay.
What did Lee do? He did nothing. And in the end, he waited till 2 days before the budget session ended when this thing is hitting critical mass in the media and says, I need money. That's not leadership.
Lee, I'll allow you a very quick response to what Henry's saying. Then we have to move on to another issue within this issue.
Absolutely untrue. I have one house that I'm supposed to know have a magic wand, and I know there's 1,000 houses involved. Total BS. From the inception, I was actively engaged in the process, working with residents, working with the city staff. Henry had his own health problems in the Orange Elementary School District where it was so bad they had to no drinking water. They had to bring in bottled water for 2 years because of uranium and lead in the system. The state had to get the city to take over the district. Henry has no interest in resolving the problem in Northeast Fresno. It's strictly a political maneuver to try to ding Lee Brand. His solution is to drop off a water bottle on somebody's porch, which is a insult to the residents of District 6.
Okay. All right. Somebody has released a statement, and I'll read it verbatim. First resident test positive for lead poisoning after a decade of drinking contaminated water. Have either of you heard about this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, what I'm hearing is the primary authority for investigating something like this is the Fresno County Health Department. And, you know, the test that was used was a urinalysis. And I have it from the greatest authority that blood testing, not urine testing, is the way that you determine and diagnose lead exposure. This probable case of lead poisoning in Northeast Fresno, is it real? Have you checked? Has either one of you checked with the health authorities to determine if indeed this is a real problem, that we have a first resident testing positive for lead poisoning? Poisoning is the operative word there, Lee.
I met yesterday with the city officials, and this is not a verified, this is a secondhand report. Henry mentioned it earlier about making hysteria, reckless statements there's a legitimate water problem in District 6. It doesn't make any sense to amplify, exaggerate, make reckless statements about lead poisoning. The lead poisoning, you can call the Fresno County Health Director, is south of Shields in older homes. There is no record of any significant problem of lead poisoning in Northeast Fresno.
There's been no alert from healthcare professionals. There's been no alert from
State Water
State
Resources
Health
Board, Fresno County Health Department, EPA, totally unsubstantiated.
Okay, Lee says we shouldn't exaggerate things. Well, for him to say that our county health director said that the issue of lead poisoning is south of Shields Avenue, that's a very inaccurate statement. And what I can tell you in researching this issue, I met with Tommy Escueda. So I have from day one up-to-date information on what is happening in Northeast Fresno. I've also met with our county health officer going back to June to talk about these issues and how we notify people what to do if they think they have issues or problems in their area. I think, Ray, the bottom line is this, is we have people now in Lee's district who have reported a case of lead poisoning. It's gone to the feds. It went back to the state and back down to the city and county. I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm not going to sit here and say now we have a confirmed case because I don't know. Because the question I asked my health director yesterday is that if this family does in fact go back and research their grandmother's issue of did she have lead poisoning, they're going to be cutting hair, to do that. So there are many ways to get to whether there's lead in people, and I'm not a scientist or a doctor, so I'm not going to debate that other than to say we'll let that whole thing play itself out. But I think the bottom line here is Lee had the opportunity to do something, and he did nothing. And I think that's what's his biggest challenge right now.
Getting into it on News Talk 580, 105.9 KMJ. Fresno City Councilman Lee Brand, who wants to be mayor. Fresno County Supervisor Henry Perea, who wants to be mayor. And we're centering on this issue of tainted water in Northeast Fresno. And we will have more on KMJ.
The mayor's race is heating up. Lee Brand, Henry Perea. KMJ News is your source for the best coverage and insight.
And both the gentlemen are here in the KMJ studios right now, and you're listening obviously on the radio, AM and FM. But if you just jumped in here, go to our Facebook page, KMJ Now on Facebook, and Facebook Live is also where you can find this particular interview going on for, in terms of video. And it'll be right there on our Facebook page. Just click the live icon, and you're off to the races. You can catch it all. And again, we'll take calls, time allowing, all right? And again, the rules are going to be you address one person, one question, and then I got to move you on, all right? Another claim that there have been 6 elementary schools tainted with lead-infested water, if I can use that term. The city is saying all of these schools have been tested. The lead levels are well within the EPA standards. There is no problem. Henry, do you know anything about this?
Yeah. And I go back to when I became engaged in the issue, and I did my research, and I did have a press conference. And what I messaged, I think the opportunity Lee has being on the inside, he has the power of the position to lead. Being on the outside, in this case of the city, all I could do was suggest. So I did my homework, and what I suggested was this. Look, city, instead of taking the position of, we know we have a problem out here, but we're not going to notify people. We're going to just test people if you call me. I said that's a bad strategy. You have 15,000 homes in that area. Notice everybody, number one. Number two, there are 13 schools in that treatment water area. Test them all. Yes, there were 6 tests that Ray, I think only 3 had lead in it, but they were below the actionable levels. But you have some studies that say 0 is a tolerance level for lead. But then the go-forward basis, I said test the rest of the schools. They haven't done that yet. They're going to wait till the kids come back to school. So my next question was, well, are you going to be providing bottled water for those kids as they go back to school? No answers yet. Crickets. The last piece of that is businesses. We have hundreds of businesses in Northeast Fresno who are serving water to people every day, and I think they need to be notified, and I think they need to have the opportunity to be tested. So I think we agree there's an issue out there. We don't want to magnify it beyond what it needs to be, no hysteria, but is it a legitimate mayoral issue? Absolutely. But I think where the city has dropped the ball is in messaging. When you have residents who are now saying, I've received bottled water and the city didn't even know about it for the past 11 years. When you have a resident, like they were saying yesterday, I have a grandmother that passed away, and now I'm wondering if this lead was an issue in her death. I mean, this is Northeast Fresno. This is Fresno, California, the 5th largest city in California. We should not be in the position we're now, but the city just messaged it wrong.
And a lot of this stuff can be whipped into a frenzy. You were talking during the commercial break that both of you are getting a lot of calls about dogs dying and this, that, and the other thing. People have to be careful.
Right.
The sky isn't falling yet, folks. Lee, respond to the school question.
Well, let me first say that I spoke to Tommy Escueda last night, and I said, did you talk to Henry? He says, we've done text messaging. So Henry's never taken the opportunity to actually meet with him or city manager Bruce Rudd or other staff to actually become familiar with the program. So to my knowledge, according to Tommy, they're not meeting. They're only exchanging text mails. The city, after the first meeting, I urged the city to send out the messaging and the flyers to the entire district, 10, 20, and 30. It took them about a month. Again, I don't run the water department. I can simply advocate for it. And the city did what they had to do. And they eventually sent out 45,000 notices, including Northeast Fresno. And so far, about roughly Northeast Fresno, about 1,100 houses have shown discolored water. Some of these may be and will be because it's normal aging. If they're 40, 50 years old, that's the time when the pipe goes. That's roughly 5%. So 95% of District 6 does not have discolored water. On the schools, they did 30 samples at 30 fountains. 26 had 0 ratings, 4 had ratings of, I believe, up to 8 parts per billion. They can't complete the testing, and Henry's right, they should do the testing. That's done by Clovis Unified. They've been very cooperative in the whole process. When school starts again in a few weeks, they're going to test all the schools in Northeast Fresno. As far as restaurants and businesses, that's regulated by the county health department and by the State Department of Water Resources Board. So that's their jurisdiction.
Question, Tommy Escueda. Do we both agree that he's a competent guy?
He's awesome. Yeah, if Tommy would have been here 12 years ago, we wouldn't be having this debate today.
We agree on that one.
Yeah, I think he's
awesome.
Spot on. I think he's spot on. Just wanted to get that out there. Are we both of the same impression that this is being caused by galvanized pipe that have rusted because of age, Henry?
No.
What do you think it is?
No. I mean, I think it's pretty simple. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I know when the surface water treatment plant went online in 2004, there was an engineering study that's always done when you do these types of projects that say when you mix surface water and groundwater, you're going to have a greater opportunity for corrosiveness. But to minimize that, you do these 5 or 6 things to minimize that.
The chemicals that combat that.
They did. Yeah. The city did everything that they were supposed to do. The mistake was when 2005-06 came and people started having problems with discolored water and they started calling the city. What the city should have done was take a look at it again and say, we need to add 6 more things so that we can treat this water. They didn't. They ignored it for whatever reason. Whoever was there, they're not there anymore. They gave bottled water, and that allowed that corrosive water to go into the systems rot out the pipes, and we are where we are today. I know you've heard so many narratives. Well, it's the Chinese pipe, it's the Korean pipe. Well, I've talked to enough builders out there who will tell you there's a lot of American pipe there too. So the issue's the issue. I mean, the fact of the matter is corrosive water was going through that system for many years, and had it been dealt with sooner, people wouldn't be having the problems they're having today.
Lee?
Well, the primary problem is defective galvanized pipes. When you have 95% of the homes in that Northeast Fresno not having an impact, that tells me that they have either American-made galvanized pipe or copper or PVC that's not causing the problem. And you put the two together, the defective galvanized pipe, primarily from 1989 to 1999 from Asian manufacturers, and an improper chemical pH mix from the city of Fresno. Now, the city of Fresno, if Henry would stay involved and get updates from the city, has been working hard to resolve this problem. And they've came up with, I believe, a solution that will include starting by flushing out your lines on a 10-day basis, then introducing it's a calcium carbonate sealer that over a 3 to 6 month period of time will actually, as the calcium, it builds up the strength of the pipe and seals the pipe to the point where, in probably 75% or more of the homes out there, will probably provide a permanent fix where it'll, one, take care of no lead in the houses, two, get rid of the discolored water, and there may be a few hundred houses left over that, because they're so corroded on their pipes, they're going to have some sort of repiping. So there's a solution in the making.
I still find it odd, too. I'll let you respond. I still find it odd, too, that something you and I have talked about on previous occasions, that a lot of this water is like in a back bathroom, kind of off the beaten path for whatever reason. Have you found that to be the same in your research?
Well, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. But you are going to find that
the discoloration is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, everywhere. But yes, you when you do go to a back bathroom or that hasn't been used for a long time, you're going to find that. Yes.
Okay.
But the residents that I've talked to, it's everywhere. And I think what Lee is saying, what the work that Tommy is doing right now to solve the problem, it's going to get fixed. It's going to get solved. The issue and why we're sitting here today is Lee Brand knew about this problem when he came into office, and he did nothing. And even if you accept his narrative that, hey, when I got 16 emails on January 15th, that's when, boy, I thought that was the problem. You know what? He should have called Mayor Swearingen and said, as you're building the $1 billion budget, I need help. He did nothing until 2 days before the budget ended.
We have to take a break for news right now on KMJ. And we will come back with Lee Brand and Henry Perea on this Northeast water issue. Kind of a dicey issue.
Mayoral debate number 1.
Henry Perea, Lee Brand.
Live from the KMJ studios.
This is Fresno's #1 News Talk 580 1059 KMJ.
And we continue live with both Lee Brand and Henry Perea here in the KMJ studios. If you're just jumping in here and you would like to see this as well as hear it, you can go to Facebook, our KMJ Now Facebook page. There's a little gizmo there called Facebook Live, and you just click the live icon and we start moving. Magically, it's radio with pictures. What fun. Okay, getting back to this Northeast water controversy. It's kind of weird because first we have to determine if there really is a problem, and then we have to determine how big of a problem it really is,
right?
And then we have to sort out a fix. So, Henry, to your way of thinking, I'm of the impression you think we got a problem, okay?
No question about it.
Okay, what's the fix?
Well, this is the way I see it. I mean, there's no question that there's a problem. There's no question, I believe, that the city has a moral responsibility to provide some type of relief. But I can tell you, because of the lack of city response to the residents, they've already had one private meeting this past week, and the next meeting is next week where they're bringing lawyers. So when the day is done, this could be a pretty big price tag to what we're dealing with. But what I would do as a fix is the first thing you have to do, Ray, is realize how big of a problem do you have. Now, I know in June,
I agree. Yeah.
In June, when there are only like 160 homes and 40 or so houses that did have a lead issue, okay, well, there's a number for that. conceivably. But now that you look at all the noticing that has occurred, we are well over 1,000 requests that have come in now to have their water tested. There are now actually been about 279, 280 homes that have been tested, and now we're at about 110 homes that have some level of lead in the water, some above standard, some a little bit before, but they have lead. So you have no idea how big the problem is. So I think the first order of business, before you start putting numbers out into the public, realize how big your problem is and what you're dealing with. Then you start moving forward, I believe, is talking to the neighbors. What I've been doing is, what works for you? What is the middle ground where we can work with you to solve this problem? Because there's some folks who are paying $15,000 right now to have the entire systems replumbed. I don't think the city can afford that. But I think somewhere in there the city has to provide some help. But you don't do it by not knowing what your numbers are and just throwing out a number like Lee did. I think what he did is put the taxpayers on the hook by throwing out the first $750,000. And if like he says, he had a responsible plan. Well, if $750,000 equates to what he knew at the time, which was 39 homes, if you're over 100 now, you're at about $2 to $3 million. So where does it end?
You heard the supervisor, Lee, said if you had a responsible plan. Do you have a responsible plan?
This is a good illustration of our leadership styles. Henry, sound bites. Lee Brand, solutions. Henry talks about things. He points fingers of blame.
Let's hear your solution.
He's like a drunk heckler in a crowd, okay? I banned galvanized pipes, and 3 other cities saw the same thing. We improved the disclosure requirements by requiring it to be posted on the city website within 14 days. Every council member advised of any complaint on water. I put together a first step, an introductory step, to introduce the concept of rebates and low interest rate loans. This is not if this was the final version, we would have taken a vote on it. He failed to listen earlier when I said the city will have, by the time this is done, most of these homes under control as far as the discolored water. And there will probably be a pool of about 200 homes. And this is based on many conversations and discussions with Tommy Escueda, the city manager, the other water experts. This is just a start. I'm at least have the political courage to step out and do something. That's my style. 8 years I've demonstrated that leadership style. And Henry said yesterday, all Lee does is write acts that nobody reads.
Right.
Well, really? Well,
right.
That's the case. We had a labor management act that attracted quite a few of your labor friends that opposed it. We wrote debt management policies that attracted the attention of Fitch Reporting Agency, which elevated our credit rating to an A from a junk bond status. I think people are listening to what I've done.
Let me ask you, I don't want to get too far off this issue. Lee, have you actively sat down with residents in the Northeast community to determine the level of their perception of the problem?
I have a list of all the residents who call me, email me, the people on this one committee that Henry's referring to. I stay in contact. I try to find solutions. I intervene on behalf of them. I've done everything I can do as an advocate, as a representative for the residents of District 6. I'm also looking out for the taxpayers, too. This is not being paid for by general fund dollars. This was voted on a 7-0 vote by the council, and is paid through late fees and fines that are normally coming through the water division, of which about $1 million be earmarked now for low discounted rates for senior citizens. So this is a fiscally responsible way. I'm taking the lead to find a solution. You leave it to Henry, he'll be circling the wagons for the next 6 months trying to find a solution and only offer sound bites. That's the difference between what I do and what he doesn't do.
Henry?
Yeah. He said a lot of things, and thank you, Lee. First, let me say.
You sure you want to thank him?
Yes, I do.
You're welcome.
Because listen to what he said. He introduced something, and he just introduced it. The council has passed nothing. Okay, there's no action taken. There's no money that's been allocated. It's just talk. But the key point, or one of the key points made right now, is it's going to be funded by late fees and fines. So let me go back to what I said earlier. If you accept his fact or his statement that he had a well-thought-out plan, so if you had 30, 40 homes and $750,000, and now those homes have more than doubled that have lead, you're up to $2 or $3 million. And his solution is fines and penalties. So the gift he's giving to all the taxpayers of Fresno is, guess what? To fix whatever this problem is out here, we are going to order now our department to go out and start fining you and putting assessments against you in greater numbers. Because if that's your funding source, the only way you're going to get it is by giving more tickets. And that's not the way to go. That's not leadership. I think what we need to take a look at here is the fact that we do have different leadership styles. When I see problems, and we both have problems in our cities and our counties. Every day we wake up, there are problems. But the key and difference is, what do you do when you find out about them? Do you sit down and wait and do nothing until it becomes a crisis? Then you try to work with your people? I can tell you, I have talked to more people in your district, I guarantee you, since that you have in the last few months. And why they're bringing lawyers now is that when Lee threw out this proposal and said, hey, you may have a $15,000 problem, but I'm going to give you $200 to change a faucet, and I'll give you a $5,000 zero interest loan to help you out. Oh, by the way, I want you to sign a disclaimer saying you will not sue the city of Fresno and release us from all liability. People are mad now. They're angry. That's why they're bringing lawyers to the next meeting. Lee, you've dropped the ball. You have not shown leadership on this issue.
Quick response, Lee.
Well, first of all, Henry talk about a crisis situation, is never taking care of the water problem in his own district. You got an elementary school that's made national news for having a health crisis. They have to bring in water. What I've offered are solutions to be determined. He totally distorts the facts. Henry could use the same type of due diligence that he used on the baseball stadium several years ago, which was zero due diligence. I've got a record of finding solutions and being a problem solver. This problem will be solved in a way. And some of the groups he's talking about are his supporters. So there's not exactly unbiased group of people out there.
Okay.
Can I just say one last thing?
Very quickly.
Ray, just real quick. Where Lee needs to understand the roles of government. One, the county of Fresno does not deliver water like the city of Fresno. The school district he's talking about is called Orange Center. They have their own school board. They have their own private well. The county does not have oversight over them. But I can tell you in the last 2 years, we have been working through our health department with the school district, and we are connecting that district now into the city of Fresno's water system.
I don't want to get stuck on this, but 20 seconds.
Okay, one brief comment. This amendment that I wrote does not have a provision for people signing indemnification of the city. You show me where it's at in that act.
Yeah,
have
that's
you read
the first I've heard.
Have you read it, Henry?
The residents called me and told me.
But why don't you read it? You don't do your homework. That's my point.
Okay, let's move along.
Secondhand information.
Getting back to the issue of how big this problem is, and I should have asked this earlier. There's a statement out there, again, by the community group that 24% of the homes in this district have lead-tainted water. 24%. The city says no. It's 9.1%. Who's right, Lee?
They're talking about the number of homes tested. So right now,
that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Tested.
There are 51 homes. Actually, I take it back. There are now 41 homes that have lead above the action level by the EPA. And that's out of potentially a pool of 1,100 homes that are now not all been tested yet, but at least 400 have been tested so far. Almost all of those positive tests are coming in the back bathroom. They're not coming from the kitchen sink. Only about 5% come from the kitchen sink.
So if this is correct, then the potential for somebody ingesting it is reduced.
It's almost,
I would think.
If you flush the water and the water's clear, and Henry, it is safe to drink the water once you flush the water.
Okay.
Then you're okay. Now, is it a serious problem that has to be investigated? Absolutely. And we're doing the right thing. We're staying engaged. We're not trying to point fingers of blame. We're simply getting the job. We're rolling our sleeves up and getting the job done.
Okay, very quickly, because we are running out of time. An hour goes fast in this biz. 24% or 9.1%? Who's right?
I think it's too early to call that, Ray. I think that's why, as the notices have gone out, and as I hope the city will send notices to the businesses in the area and really test those schools, we don't know what the number is. I think it's premature to say a number other than to say we do have a problem. There are people who are moving out of their homes, trying to sell their homes, and just have a problem with their water. It's a major issue that we have to deal with.
The mayor's race is heating up. Lee Brand, Henry Perea. KMJ News is your source for the best coverage and insight.
We only have about maybe 8 minutes or so remaining here, and we focused primarily on the Northeast water problem, which was the point of this get-together with Lee Brand and Henry Perea. And I almost hate to say this because I think people can get too much of this, but you maybe will come back another time and we can talk about some other problems. Joe Castro out at Fresno State, the president, has texted me a good question about, childhood poverty rates, and I wanted to maybe get into the police auditor, but we'll save that for another day. Getting back to this investigation, Lee, that you talked about that Tommy Escueda is launching, let's play with that a little bit. What exactly is he investigating, and is there a timeline for this investigation?
Well, the city has engaged private experts and doing lab tests to determine almost exhaustively what the problem is and how you can narrow it down. And as part of the problem is the proper pH or proper chemical mix that the city does. And they've came up with what they believe is, and they're going house by house. They're bringing down the houses that had high lead levels down, either to zero or to safe levels. And they've got a program that they're going to launch shortly that'll show people how to first flush your system out to get all the rust and all the stuff out of the lines, and then introduce a calcium carbonate formula that'll go through, and it takes about 3 to 6 months through the city system, through the water meters, and into the pipes, and will actually build up the pipes. So they call it the calcium, and seal the pipes to the point where it should eliminate the discoloration figure. So it's two issues. One is I have no lead, but nobody should have to deal with discolored water. That should probably take care of the vast majority of the homes out there now that are reporting discolored water. And remember, some of the homes are 40, 50 years. I've been walking the district there for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And I had to replace my pipes. Well, it's 50 years old. It's 40 years old. It's 30 years old. There's a normal lifespan to the pipes. We believe a big portion of that will be solved. It'll take about 3 to 6 months for the city to implement this and get it out there. But there will be probably a couple hundred houses that will still need some replumbing.
I wonder why just this area, because there are many homes in Fresno that are that age. I live in a home that's almost 100 years old.
Yeah, you and I live in the same area.
And I don't have a problem with my water. I mean, I'm just moving and grooving along.
The two common denominators are, one, defective galvanized pipe, and two, surface water. And that's almost overwhelmingly Northeast Fresno. So,
and why are we using the surface water rather than well water?
Well, surface water is we're lucky we have surface water, that we have an allocation from Millerton up to 60,000 acre feet a year.
Right.
Without the surface water, the wells were being contaminated and collapsing all over the city of Fresno, including Northeast Fresno. It helps protect the aquifer below us, and we have a major Southeast surface water treatment plant being built as we speak now that'll give the city the capability to store, years worth of water and not tap into the aquifer below us. And the water that comes out of the surface water is pristine. It's pure, clean water. And because of that fact, it doesn't have the minerals that groundwater has that has the anti-corrosive capacity.
Is there a timeline to this investigation, or is that even applicable?
I think we'll probably have a meeting by the end of this month, and we'll announce it. It'll be widespread. And this will be publicly, what I'm saying now will be publicly unveiled, and the lab results will be out there, and we'll start this program to try to do a massive recovery and address this problem. And again, it's a serious problem that needs to be addressed, but it's got to be done in a responsible, focused manner. And to have people that make reckless statements, hysterical statements, does not help the cause. If there's serious problems, we're going to deal with it.
Henry, Zoom, anything there you want to respond to?
Yeah, just to say that I have complete confidence that Tommy Escueda will get down to the bottom of, one, fixing the problem, and two, doing the analysis of what happened, who and where were the balls dropped within the organization in the water department. I'm here to talk about a mayor's race. I'm here to talk about leadership styles, and I'm here talking about Lee Brand and what he did and didn't do. And it's pretty clear he had knowledge and chose to do nothing. I mean, maybe had he written No Lead in the Water Act last year, maybe he would have jumped on it sooner. I don't know. But I think the fact of the matter is this. He has to accept responsibility for being the listening post for District 6. Mayor Swearingen relies on him and the other 6 councilmen to let her know what's going on in their districts. And as she was building this year's budget, it was crickets from Lee Brand. He said nothing. So I think people need to understand it, and they can be the judge of whether now the residents are being hysterical about the comments they're making about lead in their water and their kids being affected. I think that's, if you're calling your residents hysterical, Lee, I think that's a shame.
I'm calling you hysterical.
Well, I'm telling you the
kind
facts.
of a mean-spirited question. I ask this as a devil's advocate. The way I perceive the problem is the problem happens as soon as the water reaches the house, okay? Because it leaves everywhere, to my knowledge, everything I've read and been told, from the source just fine. So it's when it's delivered to the system within the house, that's when the problem occurs.
Right.
Why would that be a city problem? Why are we going back to developers or what? Well, I've asked you this before, but let's talk about that again.
Defect.
And Henry, you'll have a
It is a
shot.
construction defect issue that unfortunately is expired. It's a 10-year statute of limitations. I do believe that in certain cases, the city failure to follow up in 2004 and let it continue for a number of years with the improper mix of the chemicals allowed people, even though they had, the real question is, whether the pipes went out in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, we don't know. But there was a contributory response from the city. But to make Henry's vicarious association, I had one house, I should know everything. It's like saying the county board of supervisors who underfunded CPS is personally responsible for the death or injury of any children. It's absolutely ludicrous. And again, this episode clearly illustrates my ability to roll up my sleeves, to go out there and find solutions. Henry points fingers of blame and makes sound bites, has press conferences, but does nothing, has no solution.
Getting back to something that Henry said, and I should have asked earlier, he said there's been no local legislation passed yet on any of your stuff. When is that going to happen, or will it happen at all?
I passed a ban on galvanized pipe.
That's already done.
Done and passed. We did a resolution to improve the transparency and reporting of any water complaint now. Has to be reported to the city manager within 14 days, to every council member, be posted on the city website. That was not being done. And I introduced a rebate loan program to give the opportunity for other council members and the public to weigh in, to come back at a later date and finalize.
But that's not been passed as of yet, right?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the meat. That's what people want. The people want to know is, how are you going to help us? So here we go to more bureaucracy. Let's create more paper, more acts. So let's ban galvanized pipe. Okay, well, the developer stopped using galvanized pipe in the city of Fresno since 2004. So here's another sheet of paper that says nothing. Hey, Tommy, we want you to report to the council the work that you're doing. Well, okay, pass something for the Parks Department to tell how many balls they're passing out, this week. People want action. They don't want bureaucracy. They don't want paperwork. They don't want 19 acts or number 20 now that's coming, the No Lead in the Water Act, to help them out. What they want is leaders. What they want are people that are going to see a problem. They're going to step up. They're going to identify the problem. They're going to identify solutions. They're going to implement solutions. They're going to fix it. And that's why we're here, Lee. You did nothing.
I did everything. There's a stack of documents that have emails and correspondence back and forth between myself and residents, city staff, ongoing. Here's Henry's. There's nothing there.
People don't want emails, Lee. They want action. Did you get it? I mean, talk to your residents. They want action.
I talked to residents, Henry.
Okay.
They think what you did by making a political gimmick of putting one water bottle in a porch was ridiculous and was insulting to the intelligence of residents.
Yeah,
of
but did it finally get you off the dime to send 15,000 notices?
Since January 5th.
Even though you haven't sent anything to the businesses, will you now send notices to the business? Will you
That
make
is
sure
the county
schools are
responsibility,
tested?
Henry.
Will you make sure that the kids have bottled water? Because there's thousands of Fresno kids that are now going to school in another week or so.
Okay.
And are they going to have bottled water?
One final word.
Yeah.
Henry, who doesn't even read the act, who doesn't even meet with the city water director,
Your act?
has no basis to goes by anecdotal evidence, secondhand information. That's really marginal performance.
Okay. I'm going to pull the plug in a couple of seconds here. It's down to microseconds, so I'm going to give you each 30 seconds to sum this one up, and I'm going to time you. Otherwise, I got to jump off the clock and get in trouble. Henry, final 30 seconds.
Well, I just want to say that we all know this is a major issue in Northeast Fresno. And I think we also know that at some point, Tommy Escuedo will figure out the problem, figure out the water mix, and water will flow well. I think the only issue remaining is knowing how big the problem is and what we're going to do as a city to help people fix it. I'm not ready to throw out a number right now, Ray, because it's irresponsible. You don't know what the number is. But I think talking to the neighbors, finding the middle ground, we will find a solution to this problem.
Okay, Lee, 30 seconds.
What I've done here is what I've done for the past 8 years, has been hardworking, investigative work to find solutions to a complex problem. And this is probably the most complex problem I've dealt with. But I've had the political courage to go out, because this is a situation, no matter what you do, somebody's not going to be happy about it. This illustrates my leadership style of getting action, binding solution versus Henry's do nothing, point fingers of blame, and give sound bites.
We are done, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
No real bloodshed here.
No, thank you.
Lee Brandt and Henry. Oh, my God, they're shaking hands, but you can see that if you're on Facebook. This is News Talk 580, 105.9 KMJ. Thanks, guys.